Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged. That's my guy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Guilty as Charged podcast. A very early show today. We've got lives, we've got stuff to do. We wanted to talk about this before training camp, but then when training camp ends, I can't be here. Alex is quote king, so we can't get into all that, and he's busy. And I got to go see Fantastic Four, and then I'm headed to the East Coast. Not to see Alex, unfortunately, but I'll be in Pennsylvania. I know, in Pennsylvania, in Virginia, will be great. I'll be turning 30 on the East Coast. Should be awesome. But let's get right into it and the stuff that we want to talk about and the stuff that you guys want to hear about, not me turning 30. And that is these camp battles that are going on for the Chargers. Alex and I wanted to jump on here and just kind of discuss not just the last couple of days, but the last week and a half. Of course, there's OTAs and all that, but where people have started to really separate themselves or just not be on the field and unfortunately start kind of backpedaling in terms of where they are with their roster security. So we'll start with tight end. We'll start with running back. I know you guys want to get to wide receiver. We will, but there's some fun stuff in here. To me, and I'll let Alex kind of take it over after this, but to me, I don't hear a lot about Tucker Fisk. Now, I think that's more so because we know what his role is, and his role is when the pads are on and in game, what he's doing, not is he, routing up Jaw Taylor in the slot or something. But we have heard a lot about Oronde Gadsden. He's been working with the first team. Conklin is still the starter and will be the starter. That's no surprise. I think even Alex would agree that Gadsden will not start ahead of Conklin right now.
Of course.
But he's getting very involved, and that's good. And that's exciting. Steve-O Klotz, again, he's a bit more of a pads thing as well. But every article that Daniel Popper writes, I feel like there's at least one Steve-O Klotz play in there. So he's holding on and standing out early, even though the pads aren't on necessarily, and he's not hitting guys in the preseason. As far as running back goes, we've been over this quite a bit. Najee Harris, fireworks incident. Raheem Sanders, I have no idea. He has not been practicing as of today. As of recording this, he has not practiced at all during training camp. So that sucks. The Chargers then signed Nyheim Hines. Alex and I first jumped on they tried him out. Turned into a full signing. He yesterday was taking carries in practice. So he's at least cleared to practice. I don't know where he's at officially back from his rehab from the jet ski incident, but seems to be behind him. And then the most important thing, perhaps, of anything, forget Trey Harris, forget KeAndre Lambert-Smith. It's that Kamani Vidal is getting some first-team reps in the absence of Najee Harris. So, Alex, I'll throw it to you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's just been weird to follow this running back room because it kind of was the Najee thing is kind of what has opened the door up to all of these possibilities. But the Raheem Sanders thing is a little weird too, because now he hasn't practiced, and Harbaugh actually gave us an injury timeline for once and said he'll be back in a week, which was whoa, he never gives us any injury timelines. But yeah, so I think they wanted obviously more from him initially, and then would there be a world where he could have pushed Kamani? Then maybe that would have happened, but it's hard to see a path to him making the roster missing a week and a half at the beginning of training camp, that, just especially for a UDFA in general. So, plus what they value as far as special teams, being able to pick up pass blocking, which is what they want more of from Kamani this year. It's hard to see Sanders kind of still having a chance to make the roster. I still think he can be a practice squad guy. And I also kind of think long-term, assuming that Najee is okay for week one, I also sort of think Nyheim Hines is a compete for the practice squad guy, just with his special teams background, all of that kind of stuff. Maybe he can get his way onto the roster too, but I feel like that's much more a practice squad type signing. And maybe you have him and Sanders kind of compete for that practice squad role is how things are sort of going right now. But it's been nice to see the Kamani resurgence. People wrote him off. Geno Smith once said, we didn't write back. And so, it's been nice to see him. If he can, look, he was good as a runner in the preseason last year. Obviously we know what he can do as a receiver too. It really just comes down to can he block and be able to stay on the field, which is what we're getting into in this part of camp. So I think that he will be able to pick it up, but still a long ways to go on that. But with the Najee situation, I did not foresee a world in which Kamani Vidal might enter the season as running back 2, which we're still far away from. Sure. But, he has certainly earned, I think, the most second life out of anybody after, not a bad rookie year, but a rookie year in which he needed to work certainly on that blocking ability. And with Sanders out and Harris out, he's taken the most advantage by all accounts.
Yeah, which is awesome to see. And I think he will do well in the preseason. He did last year, and I think they'll only be better this year. He'll only be better this year. I was looking over your 53-man roster prediction, and you did have Haskins making the roster. I don't know if that was changed at all with the Hines signing, but I think I would still keep that.
Yeah. I still lean Haskins. Yeah. I could kind of go either way on that one, but Michigan guy, they value him as a blocker, the special teams aspect. It's hard to really make heads or tails of Hines, given that he hasn't played in 3 years. So we could watch the first Hall of Fame game and be like, oh, he looks great. It looks like he, didn't miss a beat. But I just don't know what to bank there, though. If Najee obviously misses week 1, then I think the chances of somebody like a Hines making the roster because of his NFL experience over a Sanders, more playing experience than a Jarrett Patterson, certainly, then I think his odds of making the roster in that situation certainly would go up. But I think for now, I would just lean Haskins, given that he's been in the system and, is a Harbaugh guy through and through. No special teams, no blocking. So,
yeah. As far as your 53-man roster prediction too, and as tight ends go, you didn't have Tucker Fisk making the roster. And I'm starting to agree that fourth spot was always I don't know. And it kind of depends on, are you keeping 3 quarterbacks? How many DBs are you keeping?
Yeah.
Please, everyone, go read Alex's article for what's on there and the breakdowns and all that. But Tucker Fisk not making it right now. Yes, he's not standing out in camp in any particular way, but I just kind of feel like it's trending towards that direction, especially with Matlock. I'm assuming still working in at fullback. We're not going to see a ton of that. I don't know how much we'll even see that in the preseason. Steven did a very good job breaking down Tucker Fisk and saying he should be trending towards a roster rock. I just roster lock.
A roster rock.
Roster rock. Wow, I'm Chinese. Anyway.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say it so that I didn't have to make the joke.
Woo! All right. Anyway.
Oh, roster rock.
Off and running. Anywho, a roster. I don't know what I was saying. What are your thoughts on Tucker Fisk?
Yeah, this is where it gets tough with the keeping 3 QBs versus 2 QBs thing, because I think there's a path towards keeping 6 versus 5 receivers, keeping 4 versus 3 tight ends, 6 versus 5 corners, right? And so I think in that kind of vein, that's sort of, I kept 3 for now, and I think that sort of eliminates the process of a Tucker Fisk making the roster. I don't think it's impossible, though. Obviously, he would probably be, to Disley, the second best blocker in that room. So it just is how much do they think they need that this year if they're already getting an upgrade in the blocking department from Hampton and, in theory, Najee Harris in the running back room. So depends on how much they think they need it, and I guess also how quickly Aronde Gadsden comes along in that department and how much they also trust Conklin as a blocker as well.
Yeah, and we'll see. You put out your prediction. I'm sure you put out one months ago, and now an updated one. I'm sure there'll be a final one. This is just kind of where we are at right now, and I do agree with you on all accounts with this grouping for sure on how it's I think going to shake out. But we'll see. A week from today and a few more hours is the Chargers' first preseason game, the Hall of Fame game against the Lions. Should be fun. Or terrible, but terrible fun. We'll definitely see about that as it gets closer. Okay, the one that everyone is, I think, here for is the wide receiver battle, I suppose, right now. And you can tell in the clips, the DBs aren't being told to go play them in the air and hit and be physical and all that. Harbaugh even said the first day of training camp, he just treats this beginning of training camp like just extended mini camp from the spring. So they don't go get hurt. Don't have someone, step on your toe, for example, like the Jets today. Try to just avoid any significant things. But with that said, the receivers pretty much across the board are having great camps and or are standing out. Quentin Johnston has generally been pretty good, except for yesterday where it was terrible. But for the most part, Quentin Johnston has, I think as Daniel Popper said the day before, 5 touchdowns in 5 practices. And I think it was 5 in the last 4. So he had been playing really well. And then, true to fashion, had a pretty god-awful practice beyond just the drop that we saw on social media, but also, like, I guess several, had to, like, use his legs to pin one catch, was a bit off on another. Not great. Jalen Reagor, sorry, Alex, you can mute me for this one or whatever, or two now. But Jalen Reagor has apparently been pretty good, but he did miss yesterday, I guess, on that interception that Bridges had 2 days prior. Tweaked something, it didn't look like he was running full speed, or he didn't go play the ball either. So something happened. Will he be back? I don't know. But I think that the main storylines, as Eric Smith pointed out yesterday, are rookies KeAndre Lambert-Smith and Trey Harris. And I really want to discuss them now as like the differences between them, because I think KeAndre Lambert-Smith is making the highlight catches 100%. Like he has been, in terms of highlight reels, the guy. But Trey Harris has been doing, I think, the bulk of the work as a more well-rounded receiver. It's less interesting, but you'll hear on 4th down, they're targeting him. It's a deep over, it's a corner, it's a slant, it's a comeback. It's all these different things that he's doing. I think they've just been, at minimum, very good counterparts to each other. One, KeAndre Lambert-Smith is the downfield option. Trey Harris seems to be doing more of the intermediate, short, underneath stuff. And that's, like, fantastic. I would love to see those guys kind of swap and Trey Harris start to win more downfield. I think I don't know what the context of the play was where Jaw Taylor beat him or like was able to break up a pass on Trey Harris. That might have been down the field. I want to see Harris do more of that. And I want to see KeAndre Lambert-Smith do more short intermediate stuff. Of all the stuff I see of him, again, it's great. It's down the field. And that's nothing I didn't know from what he did in college. All of that is exactly what was there in college. You name it. Like, that's KeAndre Lambert-Smith. How's he look on slants? How's he work on comebacks? That sort of thing. What does that look like? So I want to see more of that. So far, with just the receivers, your thoughts on what you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, we expected KeAndre Lambert-Smith to certainly be that deep part of the field guy where he's going to, create those explosive plays. Still need to see the intermediate stuff from him. How does he deal with press coverage? All the things I think we said really at the time of the draft. But, when I had Brett Coleman on my show back in May, he said he saw a lot of like Jalen Guyton, in him. And even though, is that like a lofty upside comp per se? No. But I think even having that role in your offense this year of a guy who's able to take you deep and simply a guy who's able to like eat snaps as a rookie and be able to give you like good volume and basically good snaps there. That was kind of the issue with like Brendan Rice last year, is like they didn't trust him to be on the field. Hence why that necessitated Jalen Reagor, all the other wide receivers that at times they elevated from the practice squad. If KeAndre Lambert-Smith can be a year one guy that they trust to stay on the field, I just think that they're going to trust. That's going to be a lot better for this wide receiver room. And ultimately, I kind of have been pounding the table for like, can we get like some kind of free agent in here? Like, it would be nice. I'm not necessarily saying like a Keenan Allen or an Amari Cooper, but just a body to kind of push the other guys, kind of in the sense of what they've done with Hines for the running back room, just like some wide receiver that can like sort of push it. But if KLS is ready now, then I kind of feel a lot better. Not necessarily that, he's going to have 300, 400, 500 yards this year, but just that he can be an active contributor on game day and that they trust him in those scenarios, I think would be such a big win for the wide receiver room. The QJ stuff, man. Like it's just tough. Like I think that he has absolutely made improvements and, we give him credit for that, obviously improved last year too. But like, I just get like replies when I posted, reposted the drop on Twitter that are like, oh, well, like he'll learn it for next time, and it's just like, we're in year 3. Like at what point, is that kind of a known quantity? And I think the more concerning part about that is what Popper specifically wrote about in his article, where what we've seen with QJ, it's not that QJ drops the ball a ton, right? Like if you check his drop rates around the league, 5% his rookie year, that was kind of helped by some flags, but 9.8% last year, right? Not great, but he doesn't drop the ball per se a ton. It's dropping the ball in those critical moments that I think has cost him more. And then after that happens in a game, how does he respond? And you already saw, Papa wrote the article, just like the body language kind of wasn't there. Yeah. He wasn't running routes quite the same after that drop. And then like the crowd sort of, the energy sort of came out of the crowd after he dropped it, because everyone's like, oh, like there was sort of that too. And so that's why there's just kind of like a mental component, I feel like, with that for QJ. And that's really in those high leverage moments, what is he kind of going to be in that regard? Overall, good progress in training camp. And so one drop is not going to like define his camp or define his season. What's going to define his season is what he does, week 1 through week 17, right? But it is one of those still, okay, it's nice that you're picking up all these touchdowns, but how are you going to deal with the press? How are you going to deal with, when these drops or moments happen in games? That's the thing I think I am sort of concerned about based on yesterday. But ultimately, things with him seem still positive. So,
yeah, I definitely did not like hearing, and I'm very concerned about it being a mental thing and the body language thing. Of course, it sucks. I don't expect him to celebrate when he drops a pass, but if it's notably visible to a beat reporter who's on the sidelines, I can only imagine what's going through his head. And that's not great. I think he hopefully can be aware of the progress that he's made. At the same time, though, I think you can kind of tell this is it for him. And maybe he's still on the roster next year. But if KeAndre Lambert-Smith and Trey Harris hit, and obviously McConkey, maybe they bring in a veteran. I mean, it's kind of curtains. Like Quentin Johnston, I think, was going to be in the mix last year. We don't know how much. DJ Chark obviously got hurt. Palmer was in and out. Simi Fehoko got hurt. So they had to play him more. But with this year, and with all the other guys putting genuine pressure on him, it's what you want, right? Competition, guys putting pressure on the guys around them. They're all elevating each other. That's great. But if that's causing Quentin Johnston to start to fall back a little bit as these other players who are basically here to take his spot are ascending, that's problematic. So hopefully it doesn't continue. It's been, I think, 5 days of great practice for Quentin Johnston and then a bad one. And I'll take that. Overall, if you have 15 training camp practices, that's great. It sounds like it's only 2-3 bad days in there, maybe for Quentin Johnston. But I hope today we see a bit of a rebound, and he usually has post Baltimore Ravens and Bengals game. I think he did rebound a little bit, and obviously we saw the Raiders game, but then there was the Texans game. So
right,
hopefully he can do a little bit better.
Yeah, and I think for me the big thing with him is just I'm done with the QJ discourse on Twitter and on social media platforms too, because it's just there's people who are begging to see that one bad day of practice, and then there's people who pretend that bad day of practice doesn't exist. And I think both extremes are just bad, and it's just let's evaluate what he does day to day. Let's evaluate what he does in the regular season and go from there. And I just feel like there's a lot of dishonest people just agenda pushing in either direction, one way or the other. So it's just let's just let QJ be QJ for now and see what he is in the regular season. I think that's just the smartest approach at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I started to post some stuff hey, let's show the positive stuff in response to, you can tell. And some people are oh, show me where they said that Quentin Johnson, I wanted Quentin Johnson to fail, or show me where it was oh, we don't want Quentin Johnson to succeed. You can tell sometimes just by not posting, who is just only posting the drops because it gets great engagement. Right. Trust me, I've benefited tremendously from Quentin Johnson bad drop engagement. I understand why it would be beneficial to your own social platform to post that. But so my response was here's a good day. Let's acknowledge the good days. But then that seems to have turned into a movement of well, we can't look at any drops as bad, and let's look at it all positive. And I'm going, that's not what I mean. That's not what I'm trying to say. let's just talk about both, as you and I are trying to say. Let's just talk about both. And it's turned into like you just want to be right about Quentin Johnston. And I don't know how you as much felt about him, but for me, it's like if I'm right about Quentin Johnston, it's because he's not good. So I
think I was definitely higher on QJ in that draft just because I was like, oh, you can like fix more of his problems in the NFL, and some of them have been fixed and some of them haven't. So, but like I feel like I don't know. Yeah, like there are certain players we want to confirm our priors on, but it's not like, oh man, I hope Quentin Johnston is good because of my prediction or bad because of my prediction. I want him to be good because he's in a Chargers uniform and we need him to be good because Mike Williams retired. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I think everyone should be rooting for him to be good regardless of what their like preconceived notion is.
Yeah, you'd think so, but sometimes it's just would rather be right. I don't know. I don't know.
It's easy. It's easier to be a hater in 2025, and it's easier to then have a toxic positivity response to that. So.
Exactly. It's been me versus the Superman movie. Apparently, I'm a pro-war, send our troops to die guy.
I'm still surprised you hated the Superman movie. I'm not surprised you didn't like it. But you've gotten. Not going to push you too hard on that, though. I think I liked it more than you did, but
you definitely liked it more. Most of the world liked it more than I did for some reason. My theater hated it. I don't know. It's like we watched a whole different movie. Nobody liked it. It was so weird. Anyway, looking at your 53-man roster prediction, you did have 6 receivers making it: McConkey, Harris, Johnston, Davis, KeAndre Lambert-Smith, Jalen Reagor. I don't know why you didn't cut Quentin Johnston like half the internet wants you to. But you did keep Jalen Reagor. One, did that hurt? And two, what's the rationale there?
Yeah, I just think Reagor is the most obvious like beneficiary to Mike's retirement, and I think you do like need to keep a guy. Now, does he possibly become more expendable if like KLS and Trey Harris keep putting up performance after performance, both in the preseason and these practices? Maybe. But I still think it's a lot to, at this stage of camp, be like, yeah, I'm good with them. We don't need like Reagor, so we'll just keep 5 like that. It's a little too soon to do that for me. So that's sort of my rationale for keeping him. And it's just like, you're kind of debating 6 corner, 6 wide receiver, or like we talked about earlier, 4th tight end, right? If you want to keep like a Fisk. And right now, in the immediate aftermath of Mike's retirement, I just think that's probably more important to keep the 6th receiver. But
yeah, I agree with you there. I think Reagor was pretty close to making it, but now I think he's not locked in, but pretty darn close to being locked in. That'll be a discussion point, but I think he's got it. What is definitely a discussion point is the last thing that we have on the docket today, and then we'll get to your questions if you guys have it. Rashawn Slater sits out, part 4. So, if you're doing a running tally on this, Saturday was a rest day. Nothing was wrong with him. Monday there was no practice for him. There was no update. He's working off to the side. But Harbaugh didn't speak, so we don't know what was happening there. Tuesday we get an update that he is working through something and that it's a minor injury, whatever that means. Then Wednesday, same thing, working off with Ben Herbert. He's still going on the battleship and participating. Like, he is there. He is alive. He at least has 2 eyes as far as I can tell, but there is something going on. Now, Daniel Popper, he said not to quote him. My bad. I'm still going to do it. He says his prediction on when Slater signs, I feel like it's close. I feel like it should be done by August 1st. But don't quote me on that. Yeah, too bad. That's what he said. So I'm going to I don't know why he specifically said August 1st. I don't know if that's just, hey, we're going to wrap up the Hall of Fame game and like 2 weeks of training camp, and then here we go. I have no idea. If you listen to Steven and what he's been saying, and of course the things he shares in our Discord, there's some not miscommunication. There's discrepancies perhaps between maybe what seems to be public and maybe not as public. So I really don't know what's going on. Alex, what do you make of this situation?
Trying to do political correctness training in my head. I think Harbaugh is full of shit. But yeah,
in what way?
I think with Roman, Roman specifically on Saturday, not just said it's a rest day, but also said it's a matter of whether we give him reps or not, which to me stuck out as like, okay, so now the pads are coming on. he's still doing stuff on the side, but we're deciding whether we want to give him reps. And I'm like, all right. And then, Monday, there was no practice. Tuesday, working through something minor injury. Do I totally doubt that he could have some kind of knee soreness or something like that? I don't think it's impossible, but I think, clearly with the pads coming on, he has already shown enough goodwill to both come to minicamp, come to those opening practices, practice fully in the first two. And so, I think, it kind of makes sense from his standpoint to hold in. I just, could it be an injury and he practices today? Maybe, but I just feel like based off of the trajectory we've seen that's not the direction we're heading in. I could be wrong in 5 or 6 hours whenever they practice, but for the time being, I just think you go off of the information we have, and based off of everything we had and the fact that Harbaugh and Roman don't even have the same story on this, I just lean towards it's a hold-in over a particular injury, but that's still kind of my take for the time being until we see different.
Yeah, I agree with you. If I had to put $100 on one thing that it would be, or I think it would be, I would say hold in as well. That's partially behind the scenes information. That's the fact that it's clearly out there. There's no brace, there's no sleeve, there's no sling, sunglasses, whatever. He is fine as far as I can tell. And maybe I don't know, maybe he can't sprint, I suppose, at worst, but to me, it looks like he could do practice without pads. I understand if you're flip-flopping Joe Alt to, get him some reps just because maybe sometimes you're letting, Trey Pipkins play because why not? I don't know. But I agree with you. I do think it is a hold-in. So I guess the question is, given, some reporting, some background stuff that there has been some progress, given that Popper just threw out August 1st, I don't think it necessarily means August 1st as much as soon. Do you think this gets resolved in the next week, or are we carrying this through a few more weeks?
I think it gets resolved soon. I don't know about, the next week, but I think the Chargers tradition historically, as long as Ed McGuire here, has been most of these deals have gotten done in that August, September period. We saw Herbert, as soon as camp started. Derwin lasted a little bit longer in August, but that was also camp starting much later than this camp started because of the Hall of Fame game. So I still think sooner rather than later. And I would imagine the things that they're debating are not how much money is he going to get? How many guarantees is he going to get? I think it's more related to his injury guarantees and stuff like that compared to, the numbers are the Penei Sewell numbers. The numbers are the Christian Darrisaw numbers. I really don't think we're debating a lot there. I think it's just the year-to-year cash flow and all of those kind of contract minutia as opposed to anything else. So when it gets done, it gets done. But I still have full confidence at this time. Now the question is when is it? Is it next week so that we can get him back into practices and stuff like that? Sure. But I'm not concerned about that with Slater compared to if it was, other players holding out or stuff like that. And, I have, if there was one offensive lineman that didn't have to practice for a week that I would be least concerned about, I'm pretty sure it would be him.
Yeah. So we'll see. It's been a little frustrating. I definitely, do I need them to tell me everything? No, but I don't love when it's here's this story. Here's this story. Well, it might be this. Here's this story. It's then it just becomes a bit odd and difficult as a fan.
It could be worse. He could rage quit camp and be in Florida, which is what Trey Hendrickson did. So, I think the hold-in could always be worse if it was a true holdout, which to me, again, based on Slater coming to minicamp, based on Slater showing up to this training camp, tells me that there's less animosity between these sides, and this deal is sooner than we think, even though it's frustrating not to have it right now.
Yeah, I don't know how often players do this when they're dealing with any kind of injury, but generally I never see them interact with anybody. As Steven points out, he was on the aircraft carrier taking snaps. After practice the other day to sign autographs. Usually don't go up and in front of fans, I think, when you're dealing with something that's an injury. It actually, if anything else, feels publicly strategic and smart.
Right. I mean, I didn't see Najee on the aircraft carrier, but
Yeah, so I guess I haven't asked you about that situation. The praying for healing, your thoughts?
yeah. Again, I think it's less that Harbaugh quote and more just like all we know is that Najee's agent said he'll be okay, which is, or good for week 1, and that it was a superficial eye injury. No one else outside of the Chargers really knows anything, right? Like Harbaugh and those people are the only people that have seen him in the building. So do I believe it's as bad as, oh, he lost an eye or something? No, but I also don't. His agent has an implicit agenda to like play down the injury, right? And to whatever it is. So, I think praying for healing is more of just a discreet like Harbaughism. But, to me, and also just the nature of the accident itself, the fact that it wasn't a football injury, but rather an accident. But I don't know enough right now to say, yep, he'll be definitely good week 1. And I don't know enough to say, he won't be. So that's just kind of how I've approached that situation. But until we see Najee, until we, hear more reporting on it, like I don't really buy the team's messaging on it. And the team has, made a discreet effort to like pretty much not put out any statements on it.
Yeah.
So I just feel like that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, LD Bruin saying he doesn't even believe them that he's been in the building at meetings. I have to take that at face value just because I don't know better. Which is good if he is. Like I told Steven, if he's actually in meetings, I'm assuming like it would leak that he lost an eye, or if he's like completely unable to see at all and has no chance of recovering that vision in a specific eye. I don't believe that could be kept a secret at this point, but I don't know. We'll see. We don't know the extent of it. Like if we did, Alex could tell you plenty about, I'm sure, like recovery.
Yeah.
That's not really your specialty, or is it? I don't know.
No.
Included in.
Yeah. My thing that I said when I did like that bolt breakdowns episode is like superficial eye injury could be one of, a bunch of things, right? So it's just like that's really my big thing. It could be, oh yeah, I got a little dust from a firework, he'll be back in a week or 2, or it could be, agent speak for the damage is much worse than we're done. So it's like that's like my main thing is just like, unless I saw Najee myself or whatever, like I wouldn't feel comfortable taking anyone else's diagnosis, and we don't even have a diagnosis. We just have what the agent said he has. So that's all I think really.
Yeah, so we'll see. Guys, we'll get to your super chats and questions in just a bit. Alex, any like final thoughts on the last week and a half or so, or just like what you're hoping to see over the next week and a half before the Hall of Fame game?
I hope to see like some sort of stabilization at center. Like I don't know if that's coming or not, or if they're, going to drag this deeper into camp, but we really don't have any differentiation between Bozeman and Zion at this point. And Harbaugh said his timeline was like 8 to 10 days in a camp back when we were in mini camp at that time. So, now we're on day 7 of practice. So it just doesn't feel like we're any closer. Granted, they just put the pads on. But I would like to see some sort of movement there in terms of who do they most trust to play center. Yeah. And obviously that's important. The sooner you have that figured out, better chance you have against Chris Jones week 1. That's kind of where this all kind of dials back to is, still having the center competition and trying to figure out how to get the best possible offensive line this year. Obviously, I don't think anyone has like a high degree of confidence in Zion or Bozeman, but like just how can we put whoever wins that battle in the best position to win?
Exactly. No, I completely agree with you there. We'll see. Daniel Popper said that they are going to switch things up in terms of the rotation of center, not center, not center, because Zion needs a padded practice. So in a few hours, you could see Zion actually be the center, even though he should have been the guard today. But he's got to get a padded practice, and you got to see something if you're trying to make any determination. So we'll see. Like Alex said, do we have a lot of confidence in that duo? No. Like it's still Chris Jones. It's still the Broncos defensive line coming up very early in the season.
Max Crosby too.
Yeah, Max Crosby. I don't know where Wilkins is at. I believe it's somewhat getting there, but we'll see. Long way to go. But if he's healthy, like that sucks too.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't expect even whoever wins any of them to have a good game the first 3 weeks. And maybe that's just fair. Like I don't expect a good game at all. Okay. First one from Joe Alexander here in our only super chat so far. Tyler, I remember telling you about Sanjay Lal's high expectations for KLS. All I have to say is, how about them apples? JK, glad he's doing great. I think you mentioned it could have been you, Joe, where you said Sanjay Lal told you he thought he was like the best receiver in the draft or something like that. Sure. I suppose we'll find out. I think, look, in his role, in the exact way I think Sanjay Lal saw him succeed and what he can do, his body type, Brandon Lloyd or otherwise, or Jalen Guyton or Tyron Johnson, whatever.
Yeah.
What he's been asked to do right now, aces, like across the board, carried it right from Auburn or Penn State, then Auburn, right into the NFL, it seems. That's fantastic. Just show me the rest of it. It sounds like Trent McDuffie is going to be playing more on the outside this year. Someone reported today. Fine. That leaves McConkey in the middle, so whatever. If that's the case, go do it against him, that sort of thing. But either way, I'm happy that he's doing awesome.
I am in full support of training camp victory laps, and that's a great opportunity to get your talk off, because once the regular season comes back, then no one's going to remember what you said. So that's why I'm getting my Gadsden and Vidal layups off now. So if you were a KLS guy during the draft, then now's the time.
Yes. The only person to refer back to preseason and training camp reporting is Brandon Staley, telling Daniel Popper to do just that. Alrighty, let me look for some other questions around here. Yes, Greg Roman said they were giving Rashawn Slater a blow. I can't believe that's a real quote that somebody said.
Well, yeah, I was watching that one live, and I was like, I looked up what a blow was. Like,
oh yeah,
yeah, I did look up like what it was, and then I figured out, oh, he means rest. And then I think like a couple questions after that, Popper followed up like, so it was a rest day, and then he was like, yeah, okay. I was like, so okay, blow means rest. I was like, that. I didn't know what blow day meant, so yeah, we figured that one out. Made you remember how old Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh are. Because sometimes I don't consciously think about that, but I was like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, goon means something else these days now. It's a whole mess. I'm like, hockey movie.
Yeah, or the Premier League soccer team, the Gooners.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I didn't know that one.
They're the Gunners, but they're like prior to the new like use of the term.
Sure.
Their fan base is called the Gooners, and they still call themselves that. But now there's a new internet context to what that means. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. Not a football question. Did you see the new South Park episode? All I knew is it featured Trump. Yeah,
I mean, that makes sense with the whole Paramount thing. I have not seen it though.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what just the funny stuff that comes out from either South Park or like Colbert do stuff about the Paramount deal and all that stuff.
Yeah,
that's as much as I'll say about anything political. You're on out.
Let's talk about something more political. Quentin Johnston.
Quentin Johnston. Yeah. Jeez Louise. He's not. Never mind. I'm not even gonna say that. All right. Next question. Tart for our starting nose tackle. Yeah, probably. It seems like that's going to be the case.
I think at this point, I mean, Caldwell's supposedly on third team, is what Popper's written about. So he's still kind of working his way to get up there in the rotation.
Yeah.
So then, I mean, I think it's mostly going to be a lot of Tart in hand at first, and then you'll have a Boyd B rotate in there.
Yeah.
Daquan Jones, obviously. So then we'll kind of see where everyone else fits into that puzzle. But I think it's going to be a lot of hand, Tart, Naquan, and a Boyd B probably at first.
Yeah, a bit disappointing so far. I guess I don't know what I expected, but all the offensive guys, and granted, retirements and injuries in front of them. It sucks that like Junior Colson, second team, Justin Boygby's second, third team-ish. Definitely not a starter, that's for sure. Jamari Caldwell, the earliest they've spent on a defensive pick this last draft. He's not out there like with the second team even. I don't know. In Minter, I trust. I get it. They seem to prefer veterans and just knowing how to be an NFL player. versus just pure like upside play. But
Right.
kind of a bummer so far that.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is also just like it's a lot easier for players like Gadsden or KLS to be like the training camp darlings than it is for the defensive tackles. Like, so, in terms of seeing true progress there. Now, the real question is, do they think Caldwell is like as much of a project as like Igboipe was? Because if that's the case, then I certainly lower the expectations for the defensive line room a little bit. But, if he can get up to speed in these padded practices and get there with the second team, and work himself into that rotation, then I certainly feel better about it. Because I do think there's pass rush and run defense upside with him there. It's just, is it more of a 2025 thing or is that more of a 2026 thing?
Yeah, and Daniel Poppers pointed out there's been some splash play stuff and green or batted pass or getting a sack. Like there's been some flashing moments for sure. As LDE Bruin points out, have not heard from Kennard either. I think we're just waiting for preseason games. That's a good test for the Lions' young offensive lineman.
What did Dayon Henley say yesterday? You media guys focus on offense. Like, so I do feel
that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, he was talking about basically, for those who haven't seen it, he's still arguing about McConkey, who he says caught a ball on Dayon earlier from OTAs. Dayon says the ref ruled it incomplete, and that the video proves it's incomplete, but Ladd disagrees, basically. So then he accused the media of like basically taking Ladd's side on it and doing his work for him. So that was like a funny moment. But yeah, I just think in these camp practices in general, I just think it's a lot, especially for players like Gadsden and KLS, where their like main thing they're known for is those explosive like plays. I think it's just a lot. Trey Harris to an extent too, right? They're just more. I think it's just a little easier for them than say like QJ's first camp, and going into that. So I just think they're a little bit better prepared and less project players in terms of their like offensive receiving games. Not so much their all around games, but in terms of what they can show in camp now.
Yep. So we'll see. They start practice in 2 hours and 15 minutes. And that'll do it from us today. Alex, any final thoughts before I let you go? I don't know next time I'll see you, but any final thoughts?
Yeah. We'll figure out a time. But I have Chris Ribb coming on the show tomorrow. So tune into Bolt Breakdowns. But then, that's about it for me. Still covering camp. And we're a week away from kind of sort of real football. So very excited to get into running back 3, running back 4, and CB 6 versus 7, and all the great things that we talk about in preseason games.
Oh yeah. And until then, I'll continue to use Twitter videos to post onto our shorts and get 20,000 views for just the single 1v1 rep. And Alex will continue to download TikToks and shit post away.
Yeah.
All right, guys. That's going to do it from the Guilty as Charged podcast. Take care. As always, bolts up.
Hold up.